Welcome to the episode 29 of the Normless podcast. This is Russell Manser. I'm not in San Francisco, by the way. I just don't have to look at this backdrop. I'm the most tech-savvy person you'll ever come across. So we'll get rid of it. We're going to put Mount Druitt or something in the background. It's more authentic.
Yeah, the Westfield or something. Mount Druitt's been taken off recently, eh?
Gentrified, yeah, gentrified.
Oh, yeah.
It's become popular to be from there. So it used to be a bone of contention in the past. It'd be one of those things that you'd say, "Oh, I'm from Penrith or I'm from Blacktown," but people are actually really proud of that place, and so they should be. You know, it's really good to see people are taking pride in where they're from. You know, and I think I can attribute that to a few things, but that's good.
Yeah.
How's things for you?
My partner's from Mount Druitt, and they're big Panthers fans, and the amount what Panthers have done for that community is amazing, isn't it, mate? They've just
I say that too, and I just got a gig. I've got a gig with the Penrith Panthers to go in there and do some mentoring talks, which I'm so excited about. And they said, "Oh, we can't pay." I said, "Man, I'll pay you to do it." You know, so really excited. Yeah, there we go. So let's hit it. And I'll just tell you something now. I'll take the gloves off, mate. I'm an open book. You can hit me with anything. There's no question I won't answer. So I think that equates to authenticity, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Now you see that through all your content as well. Like I've watched all your Instagram reels and TikToks and things, and seen your YouTubes and that. And I think that's why you connect with people so well.
Yeah.
That authenticity. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, you know, when you're avoiding a question, people want to know what it is. And I like to tell them, you know, you know, I remember doing a podcast with Sam Newman, and he just gets to the nitty gritty, you know what I mean? And some of the questions he asks, you go, okay, you really want to hear this? Because I can tell you, I might traumatize you.
Yeah.
But I've got no problem with that. You know, and sometimes you know, if I won't hold back. If someone wants to hear it, okay, but are you ready for it? Can you handle it? You know, because that's okay. It's all good.
It's a pleasure to have you on, buddy. And thanks for giving up your time today. It's a hot one. It's been a hot last few days in Sydney. I know you're a big advocate for getting up in the morning and following your routine. You know, cold shower, all that kind of thing. I saw your TikTok you recently posted. Just for the listeners, what's a typical day in the life of Russell Manser? How do you start things off, mate?
Yeah, mate, I get up at 5. I make my way straight. I don't look at anything. I just make my way straight to my desk, and I've got a gratitude list. And I write 5 things that I'm grateful for. I try to, and I've got lucky numbers, so I'm a little bit superstitious. So I'll go 8 and 11 or 24. So I never ever write 5. I either write 8, 11, or 24 things that I'm grateful for. I have a couple of supplements like NMN powder, and then I make my way to the cold shower. I get in that for 2 minutes, and it really just, I cannot recommend cold showers. I recommend it to everyone because it's just a really good way, because it's the first conquering of your mind. Your mind don't want to do it, so you put your mind in place. We're doing positive things, you know, gratitude, conquering the mind, and then, you know, make my bed. And then I make my way to my local cafe where I live. There's a bit of construction going on at the moment, so I go down and I sit there and have a coffee and with all the construction workers. So I'm in the midst of all these blokes on construction, and you know they don't like what they're doing, but it makes me grateful that I have the job I have today, and I love what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I'm just grateful that I'm, you know, I commend people who are in them jobs, and you know, I mean, we need it, and it just makes me grateful for what I have. You know, my life's all about gratitude. I have gratitude in every single cell of my body, and I think it's a gratitude the conduit to your peace and happiness. And you know, and then I make my way to the gym, and you know, previously I had my bowl of porridge. I love porridge. It's been a big part of my daily routine for forever and a day, and I picked that up from prison. But have my porridge, make my way to the gym, and put in a good session. I go to a gym that's like, you know, this gym I go to is just like home for me. I know everyone. It's positive, it's uplifting, and you know, it's good. And then I come home, do a bit of social media content, which is, you know, a part of the fabric of my life today. And you know, getting that message out that people don't need to suffer in silence. And, you know, all my stuff's about positivity and uplifting, and you know, You know, I don't, you know, my mum used to say, if you've got nothing nice to say nothing at all. And if I don't comment on something, I actually don't like it, but I don't engage in negative behavior, and I'm never going to be a hater. And you know, get into, and after the gym, I'm right, I'm set for the day. I'm positive, I'm uplifting, I'm good to go. You know, I've had my antidepressant is the gym session, and then off I go. You know, my phone is my office. I have an office where I employ like 22 people, but that's up at Coffs Harbour. I haven't even been there this year.
Yeah.
You know, that's how much I'm on the road and I'm out engaging with people, whether it's be, you know, whether it be through social media. I've spent 2 hours this morning answering people's messages. If someone's kind enough to take their time to send me a message, I'm going to be respectful enough to answer it, you know, and it's getting harder and harder. It's getting more and more time consuming as my numbers grow. But I'm going to do to my best of ability to sort of do that, because, you know, it's, man, if you can make someone's day just by, you know, sending them you know, a 30-second or a minute voice recording, it's such a rewarding thing to be able to do. It makes me feel good about me. If I can
Yeah.
compliment someone or anything like that, it makes me feel good about who I am. You know, it's a gift I give to myself, you know. So basically, you know, by 7:30, I'm on. You know, I'm into it. I'm working, and I often work until, like last night. I finished very, very late. I finished about 11:30. But you know what? It's not like work to me, because it's a passion and it's a
Yeah.
purpose. And, when it's a passion and a purpose, when you get your purpose and you apply your passion to it, it's not work, man. It's fucking, you know, it's just joy. And there's not many times that I have a big 16 or 18-hour day when I think, fuck, that I didn't enjoy that. I enjoy every day, and that's the objective too, is to find joy in what you do, and find, you know, and that purpose. That's been a game changer for me.
You think the time you spent in prison and coming out now and having this really positive outlook on things has kind of changed the way each day, you know, those long hours or the late nights, you feel a bit like you're making up for lost time, but you really enjoy that. You're so passionate, you find it hard to almost shut off and go to sleep sometimes, because you're so passionate and driven about helping people and doing good things and really, you know, giving back.
110%. Well said. Well said. I couldn't say. Yeah, 110%. You know, I do have trouble sleeping because my mind don't shut down too easy, you know, and it's because it's racing. It's going, we should be doing this and we should be doing my ideas. And, you know, and often my creativity kicks off when I'm about to lay down, and it just goes fuck. And then and when I'm on creativity, I just run with it. I just go, and then I've got my notes on my phone. I'm writing down notes, and, yeah, you know what? And I'll tell you one part of my routine I left out. I go to my front door and I hang on to the front door, like for about 10 seconds, and I have this overwhelming awareness of how great, you know, how fortunate I am, and that great. I hang on that door and I go, you know what? I'm so grateful that I'm opening in this door and not someone with a bad attitude and even worse breath in the form of a prison officer
Yeah.
on the other side, just going to spray me with fucking negative shit and kick in, you know, a 300 ml carton of milk and say, get that in here and stamp all over your breakfast.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just so grateful for that, you know, and I do, you know, if I ever get out of kilter, I've got this little practice that I do, and I stop for 2 minutes. I just go and get out of the way of people, and I just do this. I can move my leg. I'm so grateful I can move my leg, I can move my arm. So grateful I can breathe freely, and I'm so grateful for that. And I do that, and I just go over, you know, little body parts I can see, I can feel, I can hear, I can smell. You know, I do this little practice for 1 or 2 minutes, and bang, changes. I'm back on. I'm back on. And you know, it's not often I have to do these days, because I say this: I am in the best mental health of my life right now, and I've got something that's really good, and I share it freely with others. That's what all my posts are about. You know, it's about uplifting and sharing it with others, you know, and the feedback I get from it right now is like my social media stuff's on fire, you know, and I'm saying, you know, and meeting people on the street, I love it. You know, you can take a photo with someone, or, you know, and the feedback I get from people, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's ego. I think it's more humility. Then people humble me when they tell me this stuff, you know.
Yeah, no, I think you can see how real you are through all your Instagram content. There's a lot of fake stuff out there, and I think the authenticity comes through in a lot of your videos and your messages, and it's really positive too. It's not that you know, tall poppy syndrome. It's very much, you know, supporting people and messages that really promote positivity and very uplifting for a lot of people. And I think, yeah, I think one of the things that I heard, and you were just talking about it there, you know, in the middle of the night, your creativity starts going, and you can't really lay still, or you struggle to sleep well. You were talking to Mark Burris on his podcast, Straight Talk, about, you know, how you kick that, and I think Mark was saying something about how he used to get up and, you know, go down to the
Walks around.
park, yeah, around.
Do you reckon he was going to glory holes? Like, I think, because Mark's a really good guy. I don't think
Yeah,
he's that way inclined. But some of them places he was going to, I was going, when he was telling me about it, I was thinking, that sounds like
yeah,
a glory hole to me.
dodgy, eh?
I didn't say that. I love Mark, and he's become a really good mentor to me. And you know, he doesn't say much, but the little he says, I absorb it all, and
Yeah,
I really take it on board, and it lifts me. But yeah, for sure. It was funny because I used to go and stay in this certain hotel in Sydney, and for some reason, this certain hotel had these sunbeds, and you can lay out in the sun. And I used to just work there, and I now live not far from that same place, and it just struck something in me. I love getting on a creative flow. One of my favorite singers is a guy called Bobby Arlou from Byron Bay,
yeah,
and he's got this song called Flow, and he stands on stage and he explains what flow means. It's being in that moment of creativity where everything's just firing and you're going, yes, 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 the light that's happening, it's coming in and going,
green lights.
I like that, I
Yeah,
like that, and it's banging away, and it's like, and you know, and this place created that in me. I just used to, and it used to happen every day, and it used to happen at 12 o'clock, from 12 o'clock to 2. I just knew if I sat there, it would come to me. It's like, field of dreams, build it and they will come. And I just got so much out of it. So I've moved to this area, and it's just this area. I don't know if it's Aboriginals, whatever it is. This area is doing it for me, and I'm not moving in a hurry. You know, and I've got a beautiful farm up in Byron, near 20 minutes north of Byron Bay, and and I go home to that over weekend sometimes, and I get it there. I get it on a lawnmower. I
yeah,
put the headphones on, and I've got this lawnmower, and I just go and mow in 5 acres, and it's just up and down, listening to positive stuff, but jumping on the phone and getting that out, because it's good to have ideas, but often it's hard to articulate them, to get them out. You see it. It's like, I'll tell you what, I've got these mad paintings in my head, but I'm not an artist,
yeah,
so I can't put them on paper. But fucking, if I could, I think, mate, I might have a fucking couple of Rembrandts on my hands. You know what I mean? But it's like, I have these ideas, and that's the bit, is just to articulate them in words. And most of my stuff is about other people, about
yeah.
how I lift them or say words. And I think I've done a post recently, and I was really proud of it. It was the junkie mindset, and it's like, I just ad-libbed that, and it makes
Yeah.
so much sense to people.
Yeah.
That problematic instant gratification, that I want it here, I want it now, and I don't care of the consequences. And that's the junkie mindset, because that's how junkies use drugs. They want it here now. They don't care if they're going to do 100 years jail, as long as they have what they need right now. And I love them sort of things when I look back on them with retrospect and go, you know what, that makes so much sense.
And on the flip side of that, Russ, you were talking about how, and this is a very touchy subject, I know you're very open to talking about
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
the whole
sure.
sexual abuse and the trauma that
Yeah.
you endured, and that happened at 2 a.m. when you're in Direct Boys
Harry
Homes.
Boys Home, yeah, around about 2 a.m. And I think that's, and when I look back, and I think that's played a big pivotal part in why I'm not a good sleeper.
Yeah,
I just think, I don't know. I've explored a lot of avenues. I've medicated the sleep, and even the medication was, I don't know what it is, but even the medication was, not working in the end. So, you know what? I made peace with it. I've made peace with it. When I get up at that time in the morning, it's just like, okay, I'll lay here, um, put on some nice soothing music, and just ride with it until it goes away, until I do get back to sleep. But it's not as traumatic as it used to be. I don't have the flashbacks or anything like that, because I've done a lot of work, and I've done some therapy, and I've done some, I'm trying to think, some holistic sort of stuff, and
yeah,
some stuff that's, like that. I haven't done ayahuasca, but I've done something similar to it. And and it's played a pivotal part in clearing a lot of that up. And so I want to explore a lot more of that sort of stuff, unconventional type of stuff, because I think there's answers in it. But yeah, at 2 o'clock in the morning, being sexually abused, and I carried that wound for a very, very long time. But in that wound was a mixture of things that weren't good for me, and a lot of it was resentment, hate, and anger, and unhealthy sort of stuff. So the wound was, filled up with all those sorts of things, void, wound, whatever you call it, or however you want to articulate it.
Yeah.
But and it was filled with that. But the healing come from me was unpacking that stuff, throwing it out, because it was no good. What they say, a resentment's like drinking a cup of poison and hoping the other person dies for it, or
Yeah.
resentment will rust the vessel it's contained in. And so I realized that unhealthy behavior, and what I've repacked that wound with was love and self-belief.
Yeah.
And that wound through love and self-belief and self-worth got to heal. So I'd like to think today I'm a healed person from all that sort of stuff. So and when you're healed, things don't affect you.
What, Russ? So in the ABC documentary they did on you, at the first, as you said, you were pretty stubborn to the jail, like the counselling they were doing in the jail at the time. And then I think when they cut to the next scene and you came back in, you were very open to change. What was it throughout that process that you thought kind of opened you up to be willing to let someone else come in and kind of help you to overcome a lot of those demons?
I think, being in enough pain, sometimes you're being in the pain become that unbearable that another way of life was the only way, and just being that, and that David Schwartz that's in that documentary, Dr. David Schwartz, who's the psychologist, and he's a pretty special guy. And I had to trust someone, and that's always been extremely hard for me. In saying that, we went so far. We began, and I think it was the beginning of willing. I never got to talk about the sexual abuse there, but it was the beginning of being willing, and being like Mark Burris and I had a talk the other day, and he goes, one of your greatest assets, Russell, is your curiosity. He goes, you ask questions. He goes, and you don't just ask questions, you ask the right questions. And I think curiosity is the ingredient of success, asking why. Not haters don't ask, they don't ask questions why. Haters will point out why you're shit, where successful people will ask questions why, how I can overcome being shit, and eventually over a period of time, I just think that was the seed in there that planted. It didn't grow straight away. It kicked off many years later, but it was always that seed in there to change. And I got a lot of that time in that, in the special care unit was called at Long Bay. I got a lot, especially, and and it was the beginning of that self-belief and self-worth stuff. I hit a lot of hurdles after it, and I still felt a lot of pain after it, but it was like this little dot of light in the most darkest tunnel you could ever see. So, I could always see it there, and I go, you know what, that's the direction I'm heading. It's going to take me a long time to get there. I guess, it's like flying to fucking Mars. Seeing Mars and what it is as a dot of light, and just knowing if I keep persisting, I'll get there eventually. I mightn't work on it every day, but I'll do a little bit here and there, and it pulls me closer to it.
Yeah. So take us back to the early days, mate. Before we get to, you being in prison, what was the early life like growing up with your parents in Mount Druitt? And, how did you stumble into that life of crime? What was the kind of backstory there?
Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day. I was thinking, because when I do a podcast, I always try to give them something that I haven't given them before, and I was thinking about the other day about how did this eventuate? How did that life of crime eventuate? And I can remember being in Mount Druitt and being severely harassed by coppers. We were 14-year-old, 13, 14-year-old kids were getting bashed by the coppers. We're getting strip searched and humiliated by them. So not having a criminal offense, not even committed a criminal offense, I was being treated like a criminal by those coppers from a really early age. And then I'd see these guys coming home from prison that were fit, healthy, and I've always been a person who's always taken care of myself, being fit and healthy, and then within weeks got the latest car, and and rumors would spread that they were bank robbers and sort of stuff like that. And I remember these coppers are treating me like a criminal. I may as well start acting like one. I'm being punished. So I gravitated, and these guys started to become my role models, and I started to ask questions, and then which led to a bit of antisocial behavior in the form of car stealing. And back in them days, they don't have the diversion programs they have today. That was bang, one first sentence, go to boys' home, you're going to be a total lesson to not be a criminal. And it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, because I was sent to the notorious Darrick Boys Home, which was the subject of a 60-minute story because of the prolific sexual and physical abuse that took place there. And unfortunately, I didn't escape that. I was sexually and physically abused by staff members, and there's a little bit more to that. The more I think about that, there was definitely a pedophile ring operating out of there, because a lot of the sexual abusers that took work there, or that were doing it there, didn't work there, and you'd see them once or twice, and you wouldn't see them again. And I was only thinking about it the other day. I remember seeing kids getting picked up on a Friday afternoon to go home, to go out for the weekends on weekend leaves. And I can remember a lot of them, talking to them kids, and I'd say, "Oh, it's my uncle." And other blokes would say, "It's not his uncle, it's some just pedo picking them up." So yeah, it was pretty prolific there. I'd done an apprenticeship there. My criminal behaviour escalated because I was there with the kids from the city who were way more advanced in their criminal behaviour than us kids from the western suburbs and now Druitt. And they by demonstration they showed me how to steal a Porsche, and all different other cars, and escalated criminal behaviour and ways of breaking into sports stores and stuff like that. The stuff that was exciting, stuff that really tickled my boat, and narrow-minded people would go, "Oh, wasn't the sexual abuse enough to deter you from doing crime?" Look, pedophiles are not people who should be given out justice. If anything, it created resentments to the system. I believe that the system, the government in Pacific, were a part of that abuse, and I believe that it was government sanctioned, and nothing can tell me otherwise. And I just wanted to stick my finger up at them and say, "You can't break me." And I got out of that boys' home with every intention to escalate my criminal behaviour because of that resentment and that anger I had inside me towards the system.
Pretty narrow-minded belief, isn't it, to think that you're being abused and you're going to stop your crime, when it's probably the reverse, isn't it? Where it actually creates more crime. It makes the not the perpetrator, but the actual victim of the sexual abuse go out and reoffend, because now they're dealing with more demons. So yeah, I think it's hard for someone to empathize with you and
I
you know,
don't get it. And I hear, and it's really sad, I see comments about this youth crime stuff in that today, and I see the redneck agenda, bash them, do whatever you want. Yeah, well, if they don't do the crime, don't do the time, you know what I mean? Or whatever they say, you know what I mean? It's okay, well, don't cross the road and they get hit by a car. Simple as that. But it's really sad to think that when I see comments like that, when I see people comment like that, I say, you have got it in you. You think it's okay to touch children. You're a possibility, because you're making excuses to
yeah.
do it. You're making excuses for the pedophiles for their fucking abhorrent behavior. So when I see those sort of comments, I go, okay, there's a potential there. The coppers should be keeping an eye on that person, because they're demonstrating that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, it doesn't work that way, and it created resentments. And with the benefit of hindsight, I look at a lot of people that went on after Darrick Boys Home and Tamworth Boys Home. They got that Tamworth and Darrick combination. There's a fair chance they would have been charged with murder at some stage, or really serious violent behaviour. And there's correlations between the two and that sort of behaviour, and I think it's come out in the wash. And I got out with a void. I was angry, but the scary part was, for me, I never smoked pot. I never was a pot smoker, because I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. My dad was dying of emphysema, and I got out of prison, and pot became an option to me. So I'm starting to smoke heaps of pot, and anything to fill that void. You know, and then at the age of 16, going on 17, I got pinched for stealing a Porsche in an affluent area of Whale Beach in Sydney. And I went before Common Children's Court by a justice, anyway, it doesn't matter, judge, who sentenced me to 12 months and stipulated to be served in an adult prison. And he said words to the effect of, how dare a kid from Mount Druitt come to an affluent area and steal a Porsche? Well, I had an awareness, and I thought at the time when he said that, I didn't think it was a crime to come from Mount Druitt. But anyway, he sounded a bit different, and he thought he would give me a sentence, and he stipulated to be served in an adult prison. Now, where you go to when you get sent to another, you go to a protection wing for your own protection. But how is that protection when they're going to house you with the worst degenerates in the state at the time, in the form of pedophiles, ex-cops? In my case, one of the abusers was a necrophiliac, a person who has sex with dead bodies. So I never knew that narrative. I didn't understand that narrative, and I still don't today. And I think, you know, these people complicit in child abuse by sending me there. And first night there, I was housed with two men who I later found out were convicted pedophiles and I was sexually abused. You know.
And tell us the story about like when you were taken to the cell, the prison officer or the prison guard threw you in and basically said, "Here, have him, boys," or, you know.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, you know, they give you oversized clothes and everything, so your pants are falling off you. So you're walking in with a bed pack. When I say a bed pack, it's like got your sheets, towel, and you know, and other stuff in it, and you're holding your pants up. So they just do it to humiliate you. And when they open the door, and on the front of the cell it says, you know, their names, what their name is, and the amount of time that they're doing. And so they put me in there, put a mattress on the floor because there was bunk beds, and then the screw shut the door, and one of them, he had a bit of a laugh. He said, "Have fun, boys," and had a wink at the bloke on the bottom bunk. And then they thought that was funny, and I just don't get, for the life of me, I don't get that. It's only another pedophile could sort of say that, you know. So I could only get joy out of that. And so anyway, so I was sexually abused that night. I went there with a co-accused. He was sexually abused that night. The next day, I come across this gremlin-looking creature. He had like a hunchback and had a singlet on with all just fucking hair coming out of his shoulder. He looked like a fucking, you know, just a nightmare. He had that, yeah, those dark Coca-Cola fucking glasses, and he come my way, and you know, took an interest in me, and he said, and it was straight away, it was like, "Mate, come around to my cell, I've got some stuff that's going to help you." And I was reluctant. And then he had some sort of heavy bloke say, "It's in your best interest to go around there, or you're going to get fucking seriously hurt." And so I went around there, and he said to me, "Oh mate, you're going to need this." And it was like
heroin, wasn't
it? Syringe, you know, cut down syringe, and it was fucking horrible. Like the plunger was made out of a piece of thong. The thing to push in it was made out of a nail, and it was all burnt and everything like that. It's a fucking nightmare. And he said, "Put your arm out." And I put my arm out, and the other bloke was just growling at it. The big heavy bloke was growling at me, and to do it, so I just did as I told. And I was crying and everything, and I had it, and it was heroin, and it made me sick. It made me vomit. So I've sat down, like I went on my knees to vomit in the toilet, and he pulled my pants down, sexually abused me while I was vomiting in the toilet. And yeah, but what I knew there and then, I guess, you know, I look back and I think, you know, I didn't even feel it because the heroin really numbed me. The heroin really numbed me, and I realized from that day, and he told me what it was. He goes, "You know, that's heroin. You know, I've got plenty. Just shut your mouth and go along with what I do." You know, and he done that just to keep me quiet from not talking, because he, you know, and even if I did talk, them officers back then wouldn't give a fuck. They knew what was going on. They were humored by it, and anyway, so you know, I left Long Bay prison. I spent 3 months there, and I went back to the boys' home, and you know, I was numb. I was fucking really fucked up mentally, and the crazy part about it is not one psychologist, not one counselor asked me what happened to you. Not one asked me. I was quite evident that I just was a withdrawing kid, that I didn't talk to authorities in particular. I was very quiet around them. I'd jump, you know, I'd humor with my friends, but I wasn't a kid that was very well, and none of them asked me one question, and not for a long time did anyone ask me. And I think it's a really important question to ask. One of the things I do in the work I do when I work with kids, I go, "Hey mate, what happened? Tell us about it. I'm here."
Yeah.
And the relief on their faces when you ask them that question, you know that there's trepidation, but you say, "Hey, listen, there's a safe place here, man. I'm here to help, and you can't say nothing to me that's going to shock me. So what happened? Let's get talking. Let's work this out. Come on, let's unpack this backpack." You know, but no one ever done that to me. And now I was eventually released from the boys' home. My parents lived in Liverpool, which is close to Cabramatta. It was the beginning of the heroin epidemic, and I made my way there every day. And I used heroin every day. And, eventually apprehended for some breaking enters on Grace Brothers, which is now David Jones. I was breaking into them. So my criminal behaviour was escalated. Went from cast dealing to serious breaking enters. And and this time I went to Long Bay Prison as an adult, and I was moved to a mainstream prison, which if I would have been moved to a mainstream prison in the first place, that sexual abuse, and in particular the introduction to heroin would happen. Because I know if I was in a mainstream prison at 17 years old, I know the Mount Drill boys would have kept me away from blokes from my area, wouldn't have allowed heroin to go nowhere near me, because we hadn't aware there was a lot of people that were heroin addicts, and even the heroin addicts would have just kept it away from me. They said, "No, you're not fucking your life up with this." So you know, I was pretty dirty. I was pretty angry, and I had some hate. I talk about it, I had a backpack of stuff that didn't belong to me. I was hate, resentment, anger, guilt, shame, embarrassment. And I was carrying this backpack, and it was weighing heavy on me. And you know, the only time I would feel like I could take it off is when I had a shot of heroin. And
Yeah.
you know, and I gravitated to the bank robbers. You know, and I wanted to know everything about bank. In jail, water finds its own level. You know, bank robbers hang around bank robbers, drug smugglers hang around drug smugglers, breaking in a car steal, but everyone has their own tribe. But these blokes welcomed me, you know, and there was a lot of them that tried talking me out of it. So don't go down that line, son. But, you know, and then there's ones that say, "Mate, we accept that. That's what you're going to do. We can't talk you out of it. This is how you go about it. This is how you do it properly." And I learned a lot of lessons from them guys, and some were really kind with their time. And I'm glad some of them give me a decent education about not hurting people. It was the main one. Don't hurt people. Don't make people panic. You know, and I don't think the word trauma back then was thrown around the way it is now, you know, but it was like, you know, don't spin people out, I think was the terminology, you know. And I think, you know, it was that simple. And I think that was, I guess that was a tag for trauma, which we know today. And so, you know, and I based myself, and I got out after, you know, 2 or 3 years with very intentions of going robbing banks. And, you know, and I went to the parole officer. I met a mate there who I robbed my first bank at the parole officer. They tell you to stay away from criminals. Part of your parole condition is to stay away from criminals, but when you go to the parole office, you meet up with them anyway. So, and that's what I did. And you know, I was working. There was a part of me trying to stay out of it. I was working and everything, but I was using heroin on weekends, and then I had a flexi day and went and robbed my first bank, and you know, and it was massive for me. It was massive. You know, it was like the not so much for me, it was getting that sort of money that I didn't have a care in the world. I could use copious amounts of heroin. I could feel no point, no pain, that sort of stuff. I robbed one on a Monday, robbed another one the next Monday, and I went on a bit of a roll of bank robberies until I got apprehended.
Do you think, like, aside from the actual effects of the heroin itself, the environment and the circumstances in which you were sexually abused, do you think that really exacerbated or conditioned you to the effects of the trauma? Like, I guess when you went in there and you were abused while you were having that first hit of heroin, it kind of that feeling of taking the pain away, it kind of carried on with you throughout the rest of your life. Is that something that you really struggled to when you were trying to come off heroin?
Yeah,
I guess the dependency, not so much associated with just the drug itself, but
yeah,
also the circumstances around when you were abused and how you were abused.
yeah, sure. Well, what happens to you when you come off the drug? You get hit. It amplifies, right? So what you're trying to escape from is turned up double.
Yeah.
The nightmares are stronger than ever. They just get stronger. You're trying to escape this thing, and while you're escaped, that thing's sleeping but getting stronger. I think it's a good way to articulate it. It's getting stronger. So when it comes at you the next time, and that trauma hits you the next time, when you wake up in the morning, you've got no heroin in your system. It's like, oh, fuck. So you've got to chase more heroin. You've got to. So that's how people end up ODing, overdosing and dying, because they've got to use more and more and more, because that voice and that void and that ghost in their head that's talking to them, you know, reminding them about what happened, gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's why you use more and more and more. And you might add some pills in it, some alcohol and that sort of stuff. So, but there's a point, as much as it's just a real, that's a real funny thing, because you're highly desensitized as a coping mechanism from the abuse, which leads people can turn around and say, oh, that person's narcissistic because he's got no feelings. Got no feelings because, and you've got no empathy and remorse, because no empathy and remorse has been ever shown you. Like, you know, no one's ever shown you. No one's ever, you've got no kindness in you because no one's shown you kindness. You've fucking faced the worst of human behavior and you normalize it. That's how people treat each other. You know, violence becomes normal, you know, like you see, so like, I've never been one that bashed people and that sort of stuff. In that 23 years prison, I had 6 fights in 23 years. And, but you normalize so much, you normalize people's bad behavior because that's what you think people do.
Talk us through some of those, I guess, before we get to the altercations in prison, at the height of your drug dependency, talk us through some of the moments where you were, you know, really highly aroused and a sense of anxiety, stress, you know, trying, as you were talking about at the start, you have that reflex when you're drug dependent to actually get your hit of drugs. What were some of the things that you did that you can remember that might have
As
been
in to
looking
get the
back
money
on?
for the drugs or
Yeah, just to get a hit of the heroin. So like,
well, not like I do break and enters. I used to break into David Jones. And could you imagine the size of David Jones? So you get in there and you're in there
yeah,
on your own. So you can take anything you want. So you find them high value items.
yep.
And we used to get them and take them down to the brothel and sell them at the brothel. And everyone would turn it up at the brothel at Liverpool and they'd be buying everything. It was like watches and VCR
Sure.
and stuff
Yeah,
like
right.
that. But, you know, it cashed us up. I've always been someone, whether it's legitimate business or criminal behavior, that I've done well. Like I've always had this ability.
Yep.
I've had like crime. You got to have a work ethic in crime. You just can't go, oh, I'll just go out next week and do this. You know, you got to work. You still got to work, and it's a head fuck. That's a head fuck in itself, because you know that the coppers are chasing. So you got the anxiety of, have
Yeah.
you made mistakes? You know, and you're looking over your shoulder and you don't know if you've been. And I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you what's a real bad head fuck is when you think you're under surveillance. Because often, you can see. Like I've been under surveillance on various occasions, and you see them, and you just think, what are they up to? And you don't know what's next. So you're trying your best not to let them see anything, and then you're a heroin addict, right? So you know they're watching you. You know you've got to get away from them so you can go and do an earn, so you can get more heroin. And you know there was all little tricks to that, going in the train stations, running away, and everything. But you wouldn't be able to do it today because everyone's got a phone on you. They just track you.
Yep.
Back then you could. And that anxiety of all of that, was just right. And that was hard. It's just everything you do is exacerbating the problem. You have this shot, and even that in the end. See, I was about 22 years old. I went and put myself in a rehab. And I remember this guy, John, telling me, like, I come out, there was a detox. It was like a granny flat at the back of this house. And then it was the main house. The main house was the rehab. And he come to me and he goes, here's an opportunity for you. He said, see that pathway? It'll take you right around the house. And he goes, and you mostly could go out and keep using, he said, and use successfully and mostly use comfortably for a bit longer. He said, oh, but you can go up these stairs. He said, you can go in the house, and he said, you're going to get a whole heap of knowledge about what is happening to me. And he goes, well, mostly destroy your ability to use safely. He said, because what will happen is you're going to have this knowledge in your head, and it's going to talk to you. The knowledge is going to talk to you, going, this is no good. This is the process. And send it, you know, it's going to get me pinched. It's going to get me to jail. So you've got to have more. And he said, a lot of people overdose after coming to rehab and die. He said, are you willing to do that? I said, yeah, I went in. And he just this guy was so knowledgeable. And the real sad part about it, he didn't take up his own knowledge because he overdosed and died not long after he gave me this information. But I'm forever grateful, and he explained me about Pavlov's dogs, conditioning the mind and how you can recondition the mind, and how he explained about euphoric recall and stuff like that. And it all made sense to me, and but I remember going back and out and using, and I started to overdose. As he said, I started to overdose a lot, and I was living on the precipice of death because I had a death wish, because I had to near die to take this pain away.
Yeah.
I had to get resuscitated and getting coming back, and I'd be dirty about it. I'd be dirty that, fuck, I'm not gone yet.
Yeah. Talk us through some of the fights you've had, some of the altercations. What kind of things tick people off in there, and what were some of the more memorable?
The last fight I had was because I wasn't going to allow a rapist to live in our unit, right? So I don't live with him. I don't like it. Yeah. And this real big tough guy had a mate who was a rapist, and he goes, he's not good for it. He was good for it. He ended up pleading guilty to it. And I always knew he was good for it. And I said to him, he's not living in here. And I said, as soon as he comes through that door, I'm going to bash him. And he goes, I'll bash you. And I said, well, fucking, let's go. And he was fucking monster. And this was in jail in Queensland. I made a bit of a name for myself up because no one really knew me up there. And I was about 95 kilos, and he was about 120. And he pokes his tongue out and come at me like that. And he ran at me like that. I was like, what? Hit him with an uppercut, and he nearly bit his tongue off, and he panicked. And my favorite thing is to rip into him with body shots, and I fucking battered him with body shots. And when the screws come in, they've looked at me and they looked at the side, and he was gone. His fucking tongue half bitten off. And that created legendary status with me with other inmates. I was like, fucking, like, because of the size of him and the size of me. And he looked 130 kilos. I didn't look 95 kilos.
Yeah.
And, that was one. My fights were always about, and I hate bullies. And the next one was when the Link Cafe thing went off, some big fucking redneck. Like, I had friends in that unit that were Muslims, right? And this big redneck wanted to take umbrage to them, and they weren't the fighting kinds of guys, and he tried picking on them, and I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. And but when I hit him, he hit the ground and then I tried ripping his eyeball out because he was a fucking one of those big fucking raw bone redneck things, and tried ripping his ball. And then my mate, I just seen, he was just a beautiful soul. He was a Muslim bloke that had been picked on and bullied all his life, and he snapped. And he kicked him in the head, and I told him, don't do it, I've got this, And he was crying, he was emotional. I could see how badly hurt he was, I get on with everyone. I'm not racist. Yeah. I respect people's religions and anything like that. And I was just doing the right thing because this bloke was such a peaceful soul. He had a bookshop in Brisbane, which a couple of people went in there and they tried to say terrorism activities around him. And it ended up being totally nothing like that. Ended up getting found not guilty. It was all bullshit. And I felt his pain. And he said to me, that's the first time in my life anyone stood up for me. And I said, that's a fucking shame. It's a real shame. Yeah. Most of my fights in prison were about that. I just don't like bullies. I don't, and whether they're bigger than me or whatever, you know what I mean? I always believe in what's right. And I remember another fight I had was when some bloke, I was studying, I was on a table, and I had all my books out, and there was a bunch of boys playing cards, and I heard this young fella talking about how he bashed a woman. He said, I hit her with a left hook. When she hit the ground, I kicked her in the head. And I'm banging this table, I'm drawing attention to these other 5 people playing cards with me, and they weren't hearing me. And I banged, and then I jumped up and I said, you fucking rats. I said, how come you're not pulling him up on that? Because he's a fucking rat. And I said, fuck off. And I said, you stay here, And I said, show me. I said, so that left hook you hit it with, and I went rocking him with a left hook, and I said, and he hit the ground, and I said, is that the left hook you hit it with? And he goes, and he's lying on the ground, going, oh, no. I said, you ain't so tough now when a man's doing it. And I said, and I lifted my leg back, and I said, the boot in their head, is that what you hit it with, Yeah. And I kicked him in the head, and he's curling up like a ball, like the fucking coward he was, And I said, Yeah. I said, how's that feel? And he said, no. I said, because you're going to grab your stuff and you're going to tell the screw that you can't live here no more because I'm not living with rats like you. And, you know, I went and seen the others. And by this time, all my mates, because I was, you know, I had, you know, I had that unit with my unit. All my mates had turned up and they were saying, what's going on? I said, Deegs, I said to these other five, I hate women bashers. I said, you know, and I should bash us all. I said, I should be, and my team should bash you. You know what I mean? I said, because that bloke there gets away with his shit. And I talk about it a lot. You know, I have a crew of mates. None of us bash women. And if we had someone to bash the woman, they wouldn't be our friends. They'd be ostracizing it because it's not acceptable behavior. And a lot of these blokes get away with doing it because their fucking mates don't call them on it. You know, and it's a big message of mine. If your fucking mate's doing that shit, call him on it, you know. I don't know, you know. Unfortunately, you know, not enough men do it. And they just go, oh, you know, it's got nothing to do with me. It's none of my, it is your business because it's a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of what you'll accept in life. And I won't accept that behavior, you know.
Like
So,
I think you were talking about on TikTok or Instagram the other day. I saw one of your reels, and you were
yeah,
saying, you know, the people you hang around, it's like what you bring into your life, or you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time around.
yeah, the common denominator of the
Yeah.
5 people that hang around. And it's so true. It's really fucking sad these days. And we're having a more and more, like, you know, I know women, I know I've been with women that are button pushers, but we, you know, God give us legs. We can walk away. You know, these ain't for fucking punching up women with, you know what I mean? These are for creativity, you know what I mean? And doing nice things, and, you know, maybe handing a fucking bunch of roses or whatever, or being romantic, whatever. But I'm really strong on that. My dad said to me from a young age that, you know, the day you hit a woman is the day you stop being a man, and I live by that. And you know, and I don't think not enough men want to be accountable. You know, not enough men want to be accountable. I know about that button pushing women. Man, I know. You know, I was with a girl not so long ago who was just so fucking badly broken that she thought a good person was a bad person. You know, and I put my hand out to help, and she couldn't get it. So, you know, it's like when someone's drowning, you know, the first person you got to save is yourself, right?
Yeah.
You jump in that water and they try drowning you got to get away from it. You got to swim away and let them go, let them fucking drown, you know? And I understand, but what makes me angry is these blokes that fucking bash women they create broken women. And some poor other bloke has got to fucking carry the slack. He's got to be punished by this bloke's fucking brokenness through that woman, you know, and it's fucking sad. And you know what? For me, I'm, you know, relationship wise, I'm aware of that. You know, I can offer help, and, you know, you can offer a blueprint how to fix it. They don't want it, you know, and that's what these fucking toxic fucking men do to possibly, you know. And some of these women start off as good women, you know. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they're broken.
And that's a similar comparison to, like, you know, yourself, like you've been sexually abused, and pedophile or whoever's abused you is now creating, you know, another criminal,
I'm,
and then you go out and rob banks. You
I'm broken. Damage other
traumatize someone in
people.
the bank, and then they become a
100%.
criminal, and that's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's that trauma transference, you know, it's that trauma transference. We transfer our trauma onto other people. It's like the flu. We cough and splatter this fucking trauma on other people, they get sick as well. So, you know, but we were saying that it was always my responsibility to fix me. Those abusers couldn't come back and fix me because the damage was done. They'd done the damage. So it was my responsibility. And when I noticed my behavior, when I got a really good understanding, like in particular, my kids were a good example. I understood, I come to realize the damage I was doing to my children. And that was, I guess, a big part of the wake up call for me because I didn't want to traumatize them. But when I learned through trauma counseling what trauma was, I could be truly remorseful for the crimes I'd done. Because up until then, I was that badly desensitized. I didn't have a fucking clue. You know, people could call me, you know, narcissistic. I wasn't narcissistic. I just had the junkie mindset and I was traumatized. You know, and I'm not making excuses. What I'd done was wrong. You know, I traumatized people. I don't say sorry to people. I'll tell you why. Because sorry is an action, right? Sorry is a word. You know, remorse is an action. And I think these days my behavior is reflective of a remorseful man. I don't need to say sorry to people. I get, especially on TikTok, you get these people that make up bullshit stories and they go, I was in the bank you robbed and I need an apology. No, you weren't. Don't lie. Don't lie. And I'm not giving you an apology. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I had a guy recently and contact me and he said he was in a band. And I go, yeah, of course you are, mate. You're about the 1,001th person that have just told me that. He goes, no. And he sent me through the ID of the bank he worked in. And I went, okay. I said, so what do we do? And he expressed that. He goes, mate, you know, because in that bank in particular, I had a high vis like jacket and that on. He goes, every time I see a high vis jacket, and he told me, he goes, so on, you know, the 30th of January 2014, he goes, it was the best day of my life because I knew I was safe. And I went, yes, right. And I said, I don't know what to say to you. I said, but if you followed my journey, he goes, I've been following your journey since you got out of jail. And he goes, I'm here to tell you, I'm really proud of you. And he goes, I'm really relieved that you took the, you know, you recognize the error of your ways. And he goes, and I really, and I forgive you. And I said, well, I appreciate that. And him and I talk regularly. We're actually going to actually train together this Saturday at the gym because he goes to my gym. So it's interesting that someone like that can recognize the work I've done. And, you know, because that's all it matters. These other, I tell people, I don't know you want to apologize. I've done 23 years ago.
It's a bit funny. Like, I reckon people will just comment, you know, anyone do anything to get a few hits on their social media page. I think I saw there was this girl in there's this girl in the Gold Coast who she like quit her marketing job to start OnlyFans page, and she
I
said
know
like the most
Barrett.
highly sexually active girl in Australia. And there was this TikTok that came up the other day, and there was a comment that said, I was number 296. It was like throwing a hot dog down a hallway or something.
I know her. I met her I was living in the same building as her, and I met her in a sauna. And we're actually, that's that. People gotta. I don't know. The hater culture is fascinating for me.
Yeah.
I understand it.
Yeah.
Because if someone's calling me a dickhead, they're looking in the mirror and seeing a dickhead, right? That's what they're seeing. So it feels so bad that they feel that they spew that venom out, that they think they're purging it and someone else is going to carry it for them. And it doesn't work that way because they look in the mirror the next day and they see an even bigger dickhead because there's a slight bit of guilt from they realize that they're a hater. But I always say to them people, like the beauty about TikTok, you do a video response, and I just select a few now and then when the time. I don't do it all the time, but because you do it, you just get flooded with people like comments like that, and I get a bit of clout out of it. So I'm aware of that. So sometimes I'll respond. I say, "Hey, mate, I understand you're in a world of fucking pain, and I get it because I was in a world of pain. I've done things a bit different than you. I just rob banks and stuff like that, and use drugs." I said, "But you're trying to find validation and healing in being a hater." And I said, unfortunately, it ain't because you're just going to keep feeling bad. I said, but if you need a hug, you see me on the street, give you a hug. I said, and the second prize is black eyes, I'll give you two of them. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily I'd give someone black eyes, but I understand that. I just understand. I do have empathy for them.
Yeah.
I don't take offense to it.
You've kind of like, it's almost hard. I think it's harder for someone like yourself because where you've come from, Mount Druitt and, going to prison and spending all those years in jail and the people you've met along the way, and to be doing what you're doing now, in any circumstance like that, there's people you're going to leave behind and they're probably downtrodden and upset that you're doing what you're doing and you're prospering, and you've changed your life and you're very positive. So, yeah, I think like anyone we've had on this podcast who's done something great with their life and they've found that fulfillment, there's always that crowd of haters and negative people. Yeah.
It is important. It's important, because I love authenticity and vulnerability. Authenticity creates vulnerability, right? When you're being real, you got to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's what we are, that's human when you're being vulnerable, and I love that combination of authenticity, vulnerability. I just love it. You can't hurt me with words.
Yeah, I think gone are the days of Instagram where people would just post photos and that. Now it's all videos. People want to know who you are. They want to know who the real Russell Manser is. And that's what I think you're doing, mate, really well. Yeah.
Thank you. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. I live my life as an imposter, smothering myself with drugs, and the most comfortable I've ever been in my life has been me,
Yeah.
being authentic, being real, being vulnerable. I love vulnerability. I think it's fucking just, it's such a beautiful thing. I love sitting around my mates and hearing them being real. You know, I love that. I just think it's a beautiful thing. It's for me, vulnerability is comfortable where it used to be really an uncomfortable place. It's
Yeah.
where I feel my authentic best. I just go, fuck, I'm being so real here.
Yeah.
And having an awareness of it, you know, and sometimes, you know, just jumping back, and I say to people, right, I get a lot of compliments, and my standard answer is by video message. I said, hey, thank you for investing in my self-belief, my self-worth, you know, because the more compliments I get, the more self-worth I have. And you've just invested in my self-worth. So I thank you very much for being an investor in mine. And, and I just want to let you know that you're a beautiful person for I don't have the words of being vulnerable or strong enough to express that feeling, because it takes a bit of strength to do that, to express to another man or woman what you really think about them and you admire them, because it's not, people don't give compliments easy. People have got to step out sometimes to do that. And I admire that strength in that.
Like looking at your story, I think there's one thing that I imagine that you probably don't like about the story, but it's that association as Russell Manser, the bank robber, versus Russell Manser, you know, the positive, uplifting, person that you are. Is that something else aside from the trauma itself that are you content with that? You're happy with that? Or is that something that you're trying
But
to change or you don't like?
yeah, when you think about it, well, it's the truth, right?
Yeah.
I used to be a bank robber. That's one thing I settled with it. It's the truth. But the more and more work I'm doing, more and more podcasts I do, I've got a book coming out next year. I've got there's talk of some media stuff. The more and more I do, it's like cringe, right? Someone asked me, do I still relate to cringe? I relate to cringe, but I don't relate to excuses. I used to fucking cop their excuses.
Yeah.
I don't engage. Like I get phone calls through work and everything like that. Someone wants to talk to me. I've got people who take them.
Yeah.
So I put that distance. It's not that I think I'm better than them. Just think I've just grown.
Yeah.
I've
Beth
got
does a
growth.
great job. Yeah.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
got growth, I've got a PA, Beth, and she handles a lot. I've got a couple other people that work
Yeah.
doing different things. But there's this growth, and that growth, I know, I know those people. I know their stories and everything like that. I don't know if I'm like them anymore.
Yep.
I think I might have grown out of that. I don't think I'm better than, not one single bit, because I still know what these people go, identify what they've went through to make that. But I also identify the work I've done to get away from it,
Yeah.
to not be that person. And, it's funny, I've had a few people say, these people have contacted me and they've said, we used to hate you, we used to troll you, we used to do this. And I'd say, yeah, now our son's on ice and we couldn't think of a better person who we can reach out to talk to. And I go, yeah, sweet. I don't hold anything against them people. I understand them because, there's a perception through the media and that people like me are bad people,
Yeah.
But when you ask me what happened to me, you might understand why I
Yeah.
was that bad person.
And then the other thing is, Russ, when you go back to the start, right? Growing up in Mount Druitt around these guys coming back from jail, you thought they were like war heroes, the way you were treated by police. So in that context, you thought you were doing the right thing. You were, standing up almost against the cops who were treating you like shit to some extent. So I think the onus to some extent could also fall back on the police or the authorities in the area. And then you go along to, when you're robbing banks throughout the 90s. And I think, again, moving back into that ABC documentary that you were in, I was looking at some of the CCTV footage or the surveillance footage of you robbing some of those banks. And it was almost like you wanted to get caught. You were apologizing to the bank teller. You had basically the balaclava you had was like half on your face, half off your face, like you wanted to get caught.
That was 2014. That was 2013, 2014. Was that long ago? But yeah, I think there's truth in that. There's truth in it.
You weren't trying to traumatize people. You
No, I
weren't
weren't trying.
necessarily trying to.
I wasn't. It was never my intention to traumatize. Unfortunately, I did, and I accept that, and that's what I am truly remorseful for. And I've done the work not to do that again. But yeah, I get it. Because I was so fucking. I was beaten, man. I was so beaten to the point of making peace with death, and like I had full intentions of killing myself when I went back to jail. You know, I made plans to do it. I made peace with it. So you know what I mean. I was at that stage where I didn't care if I lived or died. You know, and jail was an option. Jail was an option, but you know, I wasn't going to be a voluntary prisoner. I was gonna, you know, I didn't feel good about what I was doing. I
Yep.
just didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel, and more so, I didn't feel good about me.
Yep.
You know, and yeah, that's a crazy thing. You know, I do take time to sit back and say I can go back right now and meditate. If I close my eyes right now, I could go back. I'm good at this and meditate how exactly how I felt back then. I'll close my eyes and I can wake up and go, fuck, I never want to feel like that again. Today's a choice. I don't have to.
Yeah.
There's
Said,
an art to that.
yeah. Said you're very aware. You got very like self-aware, but also physically aware around your surroundings. Do you think you've
Yeah.
obviously picked that up through being a bank robber?
Bruce pointed that out. I think he said it in the podcast. He goes, I never come across a guy that's got an
Yeah.
awareness surrounding like you. He also said, I haven't come across someone who's got a curiosity like you. And he said, and that's what's going to fucking separate you from most. But that, he goes, when we're in, he goes, off camera, he said, who's here? And I said, oh, there's a cameraman, there's someone behind, there's a soundie behind me. And I said, and the soundie's wearing a blue hat. And he goes, you got eyes in the back of your head? I said, I just know they're there because I've screenshotted. I've come in and taken photographs of them into the room. And that's a trauma response as well.
Yeah. So
Always been
when you're robbing those banks, but if you go right back to the 90s,
yeah.
when you robbed those 5 banks in the Lane Cove one where the
Paramara twice.
$90,000.
Yeah. Gordon. Yeah.
But back then, I think you've spoken about this is out of my time, but 25 grand for a house in Mount Druitt. So, you know, if you're thinking about all the money you were taking out of these banks, you should have been like a property mogul. But how much money were you spending on drugs to the point where all of that money was going into sustaining your habit?
At one stage, it was $1,500 a day. A gram of heroin was worth $300, so I was spending $1,500 a day.
Wow.
And you know, like, it's funny because I don't like to really go into this part of the story, but I will. When you have a shot, you know, you normally get, you use a Coke can and you put the powder in the Coke can, you hit it with water and you suck it up. And my mate come with me one day and he see me at the size of the amount of I put in there. He goes, are you mixing up 5 or 6 shots? I said, no, that's my one shot now. And he goes, fucking no way. He could not believe the amount that I could put away. My tolerance was so fucking high. It was so high. So I could have a $300 shot in one go, you know. And, you know, I don't think the heroin was as strong as it is today, but because it's really strong apparently today. But that's how I did it, you know, and you know, $1,500 a day. But in saying that, I had a lifestyle too, you know. I was always one of these guys that I always like to be really well dressed, and you know, I'm just dressed now. I'm going to the gym after this, but I always like to be really well dressed. And I had shoe collections. I was still living like a rock star. Then I had a beautiful fucking flat on the water. I had a motorbike, brand new cars. The coppers were in heaven when they went to my wardrobe. They, you know, because they ended up with my whole fucking wardrobe, shoe collection, jewelry collection, everything. I still had all of that. But because you know, there's still a part of me. There's always been a part of me that's fucking wanted to take pride in my appearance, even though you know there's a photo. There's a good photo on my social media somewhere. It's a picture of me on a motorbike with fucking my ex-girlfriend. It looks like everyone was saying it's Tom Cruise, Top Gun sort of stuff. But that really encapsulates. I'm really well dressed. I'm on a motorbike, you know. And I think it was about 3 days later I was arrested for fucking armed robberies, you know. I was always one of those guys that took a bit of. I mean, I was still going to the gym with a heroin habit.
Yeah.
Counterproductive, I know, but I was still going to the gym, still trying to watch what I eat, you know. But I remember my girl going to open, like she went into the fridge once and went to open a carton because I used to hide my heroin use from her. So I had loaded syringes with heroin hidden in the milk cartons. And she went to pour a carton of fucking syringe poured and she goes, what the fuck is that? When she looked in the milk carton, it was stacked. It had 5 loaded syringes in it. She goes, what's that? And it was the first time she realized the extent of my heroin habit, you know. and it really shocked her. She was a school teacher. You know, and I was very protective of the people around me when I was in crime. I made sure it got kept away from them. They didn't see anything. They didn't see guns. They didn't see large amounts of money, but they knew I was doing pretty good, you know. And I made up some bullshit that I was selling superannuation or something like that. So I had some bullshit, half semi-feasible story that people were believing in it because I'd take off, make I was going to work and stuff like that. But, you know, today I don't have that. Today, you know, there's a line in the John Cougar Mellencamp song that says, an honest man's pillow is his peace of mind. And I've got it. You know, if someone knocks on my door, I answer it. I'm not saying, who is it? Have you got a warrant or whatever? I answer my door. You know, I still, look, people go, you know, I still have sleep problems, but that's okay. I manage that these days. I've got little things in place that protect me from the trauma of all that.
So talk us, Russ, I think there's part of this story that, you know, some people listening will understand, knowing you as a person and your story, but there'll be another half or that listening that don't actually understand. So initially, you know, you robbed that car, you went to Durrock Boys Home, you're abused, put in prison. So you came out of prison 2004, 2005, and then this is when you became a gym instructor. I think you did your Cert 4.
I come out, I went to prison in 1990 and come out in 1998. And I did, yeah. I actually trained with the guy today. I done what's called a fitness leaders course, which is equivalent to your Cert 3 and Cert 4.
Yeah.
And I come out, I was working as a fitness instructor at a Japanese jockey school up the Northern Rivers. Met the mother of my children, and you know, and I was 8 years clean when I came out of jail, you know, with no intentions to use. And I look at it today and you know, I look back on that and I go, you know what, I just put bandages over the trauma, but I bandaged it well. You know, I was using good quality fucking bandage, you know. Yeah. And I went through it, and the obsessive trait from the addiction kicks into business. That's the thing about addicts. Addicts have this obsessive trait, and if that obsessive trait is directed from drug use to business, man, you can't fail.
Yeah, and that's kind of fitness as well, right? Like,
yeah.
Training. You were training 3 times a day with your boxing, and
yeah. I still do. I'll train. I'll still train 2 hours. I train 2 hours every day, and you know, I'm training for something that's coming up, but it's always been a big part of me. Training's always been. It's an antidepressant. I say to people, exercise is the most unprescribed, you know, melody for whatever it is for depression and anxiety. You know, I'll go now and go and train for an hour and a half, then I'll train again tonight, do something different, or go for a 12K walk or whatever. But it's, you know, I got out of prison. I always had that work ethic from a bloke, and I'll give recognition. I went and seen him yesterday. There's a bloke called Kevin Holland who really installed something in me. It was like he took out my 4-cylinder and put in a V12.
Yeah.
You know, as far as training goes. And I went and seen him yesterday. He's not in good health, God bless him. And I talked about, and he said, there's no shortcuts, man. There's no shortcuts in life. And he said, you give everything. And Kevin was like, I don't know, like a Johnny Lewis boxing trainer type guy, Jack Gibson. He just said a few words. You go, mate, I'm proud of you. And that's all you needed to hear. And I talk about that today. Mark Burris, he's another one. I thank him, you know. I say, thanks, mate. He goes to me all the time. He goes, you only just needed someone to believe in. I'm doing a book and he's doing a forward for it. And he said, all you needed was someone to believe in you. And this is the part of the story that like doesn't get spoken about much, and it should. There was a girl called Mary Keeney who was a lawyer through the Royal Commission for me, and she left the Royal Commission, became a criminal barrister in private practice, who come into my life. And I met her through there, and when she finished, she was out of the Royal Commission for a couple of years. We become friends, and then about a year after that, we become partners, and today we own a farm and that together. But although we're not together in a relationship, I acknowledge the self-belief that she installed in me. And it's, you know, people say it's fucking like a romance story when they hear her side of it, and she deserves it. And I acknowledge people that have been a positive, and she's been the biggest influence in my life. Her and Kevin Holland have been the 2 biggest influences in my life. She told me about, you know, I've got a gift to help survivors of institutional abuse. She believed in me. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but she challenged me. And we were talking about, we're in this big in-depth conversation about how abuse survivors get fucked over, and in particular by the courts, and they're deemed bad people. And she said to me, what are you going to do about it? And I was dumbfounded. She goes, what are you going to do about it? And I was dumbfounded. And then I left, and I spoke to her about a month later. And I said, you know what I'm going to do about it? I'm going to kick off an organization that helps them. And she goes, that's what I wanted to hear, because I know you can do it. She goes, I've never come across anyone that's you that can make this change. And yeah, she really believed in me. And it was the first time that I've ever been with someone. And you know, you question, right? You say to yourself, if I ended up in a wheelchair, who would look after me? And she would be my, even if we're not together, she'd be the one now that come out and look after me. I know she would, you know. But she always believed in me and always had my back. And, you know, and it's funny because, you know, coppers have not harassed me because they know she's in my corner, you know.
And so you kind of, you went back into prison. What that was the point we're getting at, was kind of like the 2004, 2005.
I got pinched in 2004. I've been out of prison for 6 years. It was the longest I'd ever been out of prison. And I struggled. Like, I went back in for what the thing was, I started drinking, which drinking was the gateway for me to use coke, and then eventually heroin. And 10 years I was lost in the wilderness, you know. I was lost. So from 2004 to 2014, 15, I was lost. I was struggled. I couldn't break the cycle. I was trapped in it. They talk about addiction being a progressive disease. So when I picked up again in, say, 2012, 2013, that addiction had grown, that the strength of the addiction had grown, and it was progressive, and it was stronger than it was ever been, because all it needed was to unleash the beast. And so I really struggled to get clean. I'd do 4 years, and I'd get out, and I'd be out for 8 months, I'd get pinched again, I'd do another 4 years, and then I think it took me about, you know, another 12 years to get back on track. And it was, you know, Julia Gillard, the best prime minister this country's ever seen, had the balls to take on the pedophiles, and she introduced the Royal Commission on Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse, and it changed my life. It was
You completely turned your life around 360
because of it. And I'm so grateful for Julia Gillard. You know, she's got her critics, but none of them had the balls to do what she did, and she took on pedophiles in particular. You know, and it really, you know, and I'm forever grateful to her for doing that. And it changed my life. You know, it was the first time that someone ever said to me they believed me about the abuse. Just a quick rundown. I was in a world of pain. I went to commit suicide. I planned to do it. Didn't pan out that way. You know, I flicked on the TV, and here it is: the Royal Commission on Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse in 7:30 report. One of my favourite current affair shows, and it was there and then that I said, I'm taking a chance. So I wrote a page about the abuse that happened, put it in an envelope, got the address, and stood at that letterbox for 5 minutes going bang, yeah, nah, yeah, nah, yeah, nah. And by letting that letter go into letting that letter go into that letterbox that day, I threw in the towel. I'd had enough. Yeah. I quit. I was beaten. And you know, and the fight was over. I guess that's the best time I've explained that. Yeah. And the fight was over, and the healing began. You know, I was caught out by the Royal Commission, and the first thing I remember, the woman's name. Her name was Marcel Burford. I'll never forget her name. And she goes, Russell, we believe you. You know, we believe what happened to you. And we talked about what happened. I was in tears, or emotional. It was the first time I really got to talk about it. And then they said, you know, they said, there's someone else here who wants to see you. And I thought, who? And that was a trauma counselor who I'd done trauma counseling for 4 years with, that one person. And you know, I never seen her face to face. I only just seen her. I had imagined, some days I think she was big and fat. Some days I think she was, you know, tiny and skinny. But all I knew that she had a soothing voice, and she had the answers for me, and she had the tools for me to rebuild my motor and my life. And she gave me the pill, and she handed me every different spanner there was, and we worked, and screwdrivers and fucking wrenches, and we worked really hard together, and it changed my life, you know. And there's a part of this story that needs to be told, and it's like, I was in a prison yard, and in the prison yard, there's 2 telephones. So you've got 60 blokes walking up and down, knowing what everyone's talking about on their phones, you know. And so I'm talking to the Royal Commission in terminologies that sound like I'm talking to the police, you know, and that will get you killed in prison, you know. And I could see a couple of people in the background in the shadows, sort of whispering and everything. I can pick up a vibe. I read what's going on. So I called a yard meeting, 60 blokes, and I said, listen, I'm not talking to the police. I want that to be fully known. I'm not talking to the police. I said, you know, I'm talking to Royal Commission about the abuse I suffered as a child because I want to heal from it. I said, the big point, I said, I don't like a lot of you people. I said, I don't want to live with this for the rest of my life. I just want to heal from this and move on, you know. 65 blokes started clapping, you know, fucking wow, how powerful. Even this prison officer pulled me up and said, fuck, that could have went wrong for you. And I said, yeah, well, it didn't. And so many people come and disclose for the first time about the abuse that happened to them, and they wanted to know how I was doing my healing journey. And I guess, you know, my organization was born from that one speech. You know, I had the ability to articulate and the strength to talk about what had happened to me and inspire other people and feel safe and create a trauma-informed platform for these people to talk about. I haven't got degrees or anything like that, but people tell to me these days, they go, Russell's a trauma expert through lived experience, you know, and I like that tag. I had a tag put on me recently, Russell's a healer, and I went, fucking what? I don't know about that. And they said, well, how many clients you got? I said, 20,000. They said, fucking, you're a healer. You've created, whether, you know, you've created a platform for people to heal. So you're a healer, cop the tag. And I like it. I like that tag. You know, I'm not big on tags. People have, and I don't, you know, we talk, I'd rather be known as Russell a healer than Russell a bank robber. And I think the more and more work I do in this space, the more and more that's, oh, Russell used to be a bank robber, but Russell's a healer now. And I think the more and more that's sort of apt, you know, and I like it. I like it because Russell's a contributor. Russell doesn't take no more. Russell gives.
As sick as it sounds, do you think this whole journey of being abused and having to overcome all of your adversity has given you a really strong sense of purpose and identity now in as you say, being a healer or being that?
100%, 100% it is. And, you know, we all have, you know, different mountains to climb, you know, and sometimes them mountains have got different sort of terrain. My terrain is just a bit different than others. But yeah, 100%. I'm not saying it made me the man I am today, because I would have preferred to do it another way. It would have been, you know, I the last time I got sentenced by a district court judge at the Downing Centre, because I was in jail for 4 years, and with 2 weeks to go, the police turned up with some old robberies. It was just a dirty old trick that they played. But I ended up getting out of bail. I ended up doing rehab, and I got sentenced on them. And the judge said, and that was really big for me, because a judge finally acknowledged the abuse that happened to me, and he said, you know, in another life, he said, I have no doubt you would have been a CEO of a multinational company because you've demonstrated a really good business acumen. It's just you've got something in you that just can't be taught. And he said, to sentence you back to prison today would be doing a big disservice to the community, because you've now become a community asset, or words to that effect. And you know, I took a lot of pride in that, a lot of pride, and it made me emotional, because it was first time that I wasn't told I was such a bad person that you needed to be taught a lesson and you needed to be locked away and you were a menace to society and the danger. I was told that I was an asset to the community, and I like that, and I like that, and you know, it was that first acknowledgement. You know, man, I've fucking grown since then. I've blossomed since then, because I take that stuff serious. I take, you know, my community work serious, you know, and I get stopped a lot in public. I went to Bondi the other day, and I was with this girl, and she goes like, fucking what the fuck, you know, people want photos or whatnot, and I've always got time for everyone. And, you know, that's my duty these days. You know, that's my calling in days. You know, I can sit there and talk and take, because people want to offload how they're feeling. And you know what? I've got something there. I've got a platform, and I've got, you know, I've got a lot of the answers. And I can't keep what I've got unless I share it freely with others. You know, I live by that. You know, it's an NA, you know, it's an NA cliche, but it's true. I share what I've got freely with others for nothing. I want nothing in return. other than to know that can make a difference.
So you started your business, The Voice of a Survivor in Coffs Harbour, and this was the same. Would I be correct in saying it's the same place where you were admitted to Adele House?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
And so
But
there's a lot of really nice metaphors throughout your story. You know, you talk about the doorknob when you're going out the door and you twist it down and you have that moment of gratitude. You talked about that moment where you were feeding the letter in the post box
yeah,
when you're getting rid of your pain. Then also, I guess this Adele House in Coffs Harbour where you're admitted. And you attended for a lot of your rehabilitation. The fact that that's now, I guess, the setup for a lot of the work you're doing with providing that legal advice and support for other victims of abuse.
yeah, for sure. We've actually changed it recently to Warriors Advocacy. I know it's just PR people wanted that done, but 100%. Adele House was one of these places. You know, I went to Adele 4 years clean. I didn't need it. I didn't need a rehab for the drug stuff because I've done a lot of work, and especially for trauma counselling. But I needed Adele for living problems because I didn't know how to live. So I went there with the intentions of learning how to live, like how to cope in society. You know, it's funny because when I was leaving there, I guess I was the most qualified person there because they offered me the general manager's job. I said, "Oh, we'd love you." They had like a bit of a gathering. They said, "Look, the owners," they said, we would, you know, we wouldn't often do this, but because you're just coming out, but we're willing to offer you the general manager's job, and we'll give you a company car and a place to live." And you know, I thanked them. I said, "You know, I've got this purpose I've got to chase, and it's bigger than Adele House, you know." And what a privilege! What a privilege that people could see me in that light to offer me that job, you know. And I said no. I knocked it back, and then you know, and Coffs Harbour, you know, I live there. I call it Coffs Harbour because every third car up there's a car. It's just the most overpopulated place with police. Fortunately, I got left alone by them. But yeah, I've got, you know, I lived there for 2 years. I lived there for 2 years. It was like Mount Druitt by the sea. There's more Mount Druitters live there than fucking Mount Druitt. And but I had a nice, yeah, I set it up. I set the Voice of a Survivor up at the time on a coffee table, on a kitchen, on a barbecue table on my desk. I didn't know how to fucking use it, but we really grew. Yeah, you know, and even that business, you know, I've got people in there. I'm all about growth. So my general manager, Letitia Campbell, big shout out to Letitia. She's a little legend. She started with us as a receptionist. Now she's our general manager, and I'm all about that. You know, in you know, improving people's lives. You know, we give her the skills she went through. Like, I know if she left now, she's on her, you know, resume. She's got general manager. She's been a general manager for 3 years of a company, you know, that employs 22 people. So I'm all about that, improving the lives of people, whether it's survivors or people who work for me, or, you know, I've got a PA, Beth, as I'm all about improving their lifestyle too, and giving them skills. And I think for this work you do and the people you're engaging with, that's just the natural fruition. It just comes naturally. You get improved by these people, you get empowered by these people.
And I guess one thing about that, you look at businesses, and in order to be successful in any business, you kind of need to have that element of, um, you know, advantage over your competitors, or you know, doing something differently, right? And I think when you look at what you were doing, essentially, no one else, none of all these abuse victims in prison, they wouldn't want to talk to anyone else, would they? They don't want to.
No. No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't because they don't look. These are people who've been severely burnt and trod on by the system itself. Lawyers in particular. Lawyers, man, I work with a lot of lawyers, and they laugh at me. I say, "You're fucking leeches. You're fucking worse than used car salesmen," because a lot of them can't be trusted, and it's all about the bottom line. It's about the dollar. What we do in the work we do, we make sure that our clients are being treated with dignity and respect. And to come through us, if they were to go through a lawyer directly, it would cost them twice as much. We negotiate in volume. So we say to lawyers, okay, we've got 20 clients here. You're not going to rob them, you're not going to rip them off, you're going to do things our way, or we'll just take them to your competitor.
Yeah.
And that comes in, like, we work on a trauma-informed basis. Like, we're not having, like, I sat through the other day, I had a client come and see me and work with a lawyer, and I heard how the lawyer spoke to the client. I rang my general manager, said, "We're not working with that firm no more." So I don't like how that solicitor was talking to that client. I don't like it. I don't approve of it. And she was talking to that girl like she was a piece of shit. And I said, no, no. And then the general manager of that law firm, I said, mate, well, it's going to work like this. You either sack that lawyer or we'll move our work in. I said, because that's not acceptable. And that law is a reflection of your management skills. Because you should never allow, surely you've sat through and, surely you know how that lawyer operates. And she said, oh, I'll try to rectify. I said, yeah, rectify it. You can rectify it now. I said, but we'll give you a break for a while because we want an assurance from your firm that that lawyer is going to treat that client with the dignity and respect, because that's big to me. I want my clients to feel heard. I want my clients to feel safe. I want them to just know that they can trust again. And that client rings me and just said, wow, Russell, I'm so blown away, because I let that client hear how I talked to that general manager. And it's really important, when it comes to how much they pay. I reckon by coming through us directly, maybe they'd pay around about half what they normally pay lawyers. And I think, and that's, once again, we negotiate. We say they'll get an invoice, and I'll jump on and say that's way out of line, because I've got the balance. And also, I've got the benefit of Mary, my ex-partner, the barrister, and I can ask her to calculate how much it'd be worth, and I can tell them the true value of the case.
Yeah.
And saying it's not worth, like, I'm going to say, I'll go on record as saying we work for Slater and Gordon, and a bloke got this claim, he got 410,000, and on a first day mediation, they wanted to charge him 190 grand. I said, oh man, I rang up and I said, mate, what do you think this bloke playing a poker machine? I said, mate, you're bigger robbers than I. Went off at this woman. I said, no, and she goes, no. And I said, and I calculated, and I said, I'm going to tell you how much this job's worth. And I had an invoice breakdown. And I said, and they, because they showed me theirs, and I said, no, it ain't worth $700 an hour, because you're talking to a legal secretary. It's worth about $130 an hour. And I broke it down, and I said, and that's the case. And the person in general who took the phone call was a legal secretary. You're not talking to a barrister for $600 an hour, so you're robbing him. Yeah. So we're off to a bad start. I broke down the invoice, and I got $90,000 taken off that bill. But by that, and I still had 60 grand in me to get off it. And he was just beating this bloke. He said, mate, just take it, Russell. I've had enough. And I said, mate, just let me fight for you for one more month, and I'll get another 60,000. He goes, Russell, I want nothing to do with these people, And he goes, I don't give a fuck. He didn't give a fuck about the money, but I did for him, because he deserved as much money as he could to create new memories, and that's important. And I do it all the time. They ring me up and they'll say, what do you think about it? I'll say, that's dog shit. I get it calculated, and I come back with the lawyers, and they go, oh, he's right. Because lawyers will try any dirty trick, especially when it comes to, that's why, the publicly listed law firms, you got to be really careful, because they've got, shareholders to be, to answer to, but that doesn't mean they can rob them.
Yeah.
And, that doesn't give them a green light to rob people. I love that.
Such a good position. Such a good position. You had Mary, I guess your awareness of people, like you say, you can really tell who's a fake and who's real. And then also, the way that you had these prisoners were able to approach you and talk to you comfortably about their abuse. So you really, created a really good opportunity for you to start to develop yourself as a person too. One of the things that I'd like to ask you a bit about was being a victim of abuse, carrying that. Do you ever find it challenging talking so much about your story? You can come on all these podcasts, you can talk to media, do your social media, and a lot of your image is based around that story of what, the voice of a survivor. And then having to make all of these calls and talk to all of these people. Do you find this burdensome? Does this ever?
No, I don't. You know what? Professor Ian Coyle, who's a good friend of mine too, he's one of the leading trauma specialists. He's a professor psychologist. Said he wrote a report about me for the court case. He said Russell Manser and only other one person called Hetty Johnson from Bravehearts are the only two people I've ever come across that can grow in this space, like grow mentally. And I find it. I don't know. I mean, I love a good fight, and I love a good challenge, and I do grow. The more I tell my story, the more I heal, because the more I realize, and I realize the abuse and that sort of stuff. Like I've got the analogy of the backpack full of bricks that have got all different shame, guilt, remorse, hate, and all that embarrassment on it. And the more I tell that story, the more I'm holding that backpack at the perpetrators themselves, because the more I realize it fucking didn't belong to me, it belonged to them. Yesterday I had lunch with one of the biggest gangsters in Australia. Right? I won't say his name, but he's just a real fucking hard bloke. And he said, mate, he goes, you're a real man. He said, you're a real man. He goes, you are fucking one of the strongest human beings I've ever come across, because how you can do that, you can talk about what happened to you. He goes, takes real strength. He goes, it takes real strength. And it choked me up, because coming from this guy, like, he's fucking, mate, real heavy duty dude, and he goes, man, he goes, Russell, he goes, it never happened to me. He goes, but I drew so much strength in your strength to do that, and yeah, I tell you, I've done the first, say, 1,100 trauma interviews on this business. So when I say that, I've done the interviews about what happened to people, so about 1,100 over a period of about 4 years. And the last one I ever done was with one of my really good friends, and it was a really bad one. It was really fucking prolific what happened, and I didn't realize. I knew he'd been abused, but I didn't know to the extent. And I jumped off, and I said to my business partner, I'm not going to do them no more. So I'm just not going to do them no more. I can talk about people because there's this thing. It's a bit of an art. So I make sure I don't visualize things when I'm talking about it. And I'm a real visual person. If you talk to me, if you said I went down the road and I seen a red dog sitting in the back of a black car, I would visualize a red dog sitting in a black car. That's just how my brain works. I don't know how other people's brains work. I could visualize. But in this interview, I kept on visualizing what was happening. I was like I was watching a fucking nightmare. In the past, I just hear words, right? I just hear words, but they're words I can relate to, and those words, because in that interview, you're trying to get the person to be the most vulnerable they can, to get out the most they can into that interview for the lawyers, the psychiatrists, and the courts to work with, to the damage that has been happening to them, and in this one, I'm seeing it. I'm fucking seeing it. It's like watching this fucking nightmare. And I'm asking myself why I can't fucking get out of this fucking nightmare. And so that's when I stopped it. But I'm still in a position. I've got a lot of skills, and they are skills that I've learned to sort of disassociate from it, because there's an importance in this. There's a real importance in the work, and it's necessary for these people to have my ears to listen to them and my knowledge to move them on from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I'm really loving this podcast. You asked some good questions.
I just like I like talking to people like yourself. That it's really insightful. Honestly, I was funny the other day because I don't intend to make this like a podcast about criminals or anything. But we've had Andrew Hamilton, we've had the Confit boys,
Joey,
Simon Finneck, and so like there's this flavor recently of people who have spent time in prison, and I know it's not really the genre of the podcast. It's more about generally people who are doing things differently and breaking down the stereotypes, challenging the norm. But I found it really interesting, and a lot of these people tend to have really interesting stories.
There's a fascination in true crime, isn't there? There's a real, and it doesn't have, like, same with me. I like mixing. I got Brafen Astor on mine tomorrow, the footballer who's suicide.
Hey, Russ, before we get into your chat about your podcast, do you want to just give the listeners a bit of an idea? It's the Stick Up podcast, but where can
the
they
Stick Up podcast? It's on Spotify and Apple iTunes or whatever, Apple Podcast. I work with Hayden who are my production team, who do Gary Jubilant and many others.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get. I think we're in total we've done about 60 episodes so far. Yep. We've had, it's funny, like I was listening to my Charles Waterstreet. Charles Waterstreet's the barrister. I'll give you a good one for you and give you an intro to him. And he's the barrister that they based the ABC TV show Rake Off. So if anyone's seen that, it's about a rowdy lawyer that's on the coke and on the drink, but always gets a win and always roots the girl. But I was listening to that the other day, and it's just so fucking good. I was just, and I'm only I love the challenge of an interview. Like it's like getting the best. And I had one the other day, and it was with a bloke that's was loaded up by that copper Keneally, Christine Keneally's son, and he had some really bad things. And I love that. And I was really challenged by it. But you know, I think I pulled it off pretty good. Like yourself, that's an adventure, isn't it? When you do
Yeah,
podcasts, I
I
love
love
going
it.
on an adventure with people, and they're the sort of stuff that I can visualize their stories. You know what I mean? I love getting engaged and watching it. It's like I'm watching a movie of their life.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I think that's the beauty about podcasts. If you're just listening to it, you can close your eyes and see it. I can do that.
I kind of forget you don't even know who's listening, right, to your podcast. You see all the numbers, right? But it's kind of more the process of me sitting in front of you having a chat. I take away a lot of learnings, and then it almost becomes like chapters of your story, and where you
Yeah.
learn different skills and, or not skills, but more so
Mm.
outlooks on life, different like knowledge as well. Like we talked about the Confit boys, and this is something that we could get your insights on. Andrew Hamilton also gave his sort of insights on this as well. But the Scandinavian prison system, and I think when we look back to what you were talking about, growing up in Mount Druitt, being treated like shit, like you were a criminal, so you became a criminal. And then we were talking there about how the lawyers that a lot of your clients are working with were treating the clients like shit.
Mm.
And then we think about, well, what type of person's that going to produce in society when we're just always you treat your clients like they're just another number or just another, person to squeeze a bit of cash out of. But the same thing happens with the medical system, right? Like we have doctors that are like turnstiles with their clients, 10
Dr.
minutes,
Charlie Tao, I've had him on
just
my podcast.
spitting them out. Like, and
Yeah.
then the thing is, you go down the road, and like I work with a lot of people with diabetes, and I've spoken about that on some of the other podcasts. But essentially, they end up being real bitter towards the doctors and the medical centers about the type of treatment that they get. And then they go and tell the next person, doctors are shit, doctors are useless. But you go to a private practice and you get really good
Yeah, you get
service from a
I
general
can really
practitioner.
relate to that, you know, because I remember dealing with prison doctors. Prison medical staff, mate, are the lowest. In our prison system, our medical system in there is third world at best, you know. And how I remember going and sitting with a doctor, and every 2 minutes I was getting up to get out because you go to a jail doctor and it's like you got 2 minutes in and out. Doesn't matter how
Yeah.
bad you are. They're not going to pull out a stethoscope. They're going, oh yeah, what's your problem? Yeah, no, you can't have this, you can't have that. And there's all these things you can't have before you can have.
Yeah.
And anyway, so it's getting treated nice. That's just getting treated with a bit of respect. Is
Something good about it.
Yeah, it used to spin me out. Like now, I've got mates that are doctors, and I'll ring my mate. Like I've got a Doctor Zach Turner is a really good friend of mine. The doctor down the road, he fucking rings me, mate. How you going? I got a few doctors I've got three doctors in particular who I'd call friends. You know, I'm feeling like I can, and I get the rock star treatment with. Oh, when I say rock star, I just get treated like a human being. I call that rock star because being treated decently, like other than those prison doctors, they just treat you like shit. They just think they're looking at you like you are a piece of shit, and just being treated nicely and with I really appreciate it. I've got an awareness of how medical staff treat me.
Yeah, I walk in a medical center, go, I'd like to get a blood test done. I'm a young fella, just taking care of my health, right? No, it's not clinically necessary because you don't have some form of disease yet. So we're not giving you a blood test. The government's not going to fund it. All right, I'll wait till I get diabetes, pre-diabetes, and then I'll warrant me getting a blood test. It doesn't make sense to me. You go through Medicare, and everyone should have the right to one blood test a year. And if you have some form of medical condition, then it warrants you getting, two or more blood tests a year, so you can manage your health, your condition, that kind of thing. But you go in there and 10 minutes, what do you need? Write the script, kick you out. They don't even ask. It's nice to feel like someone actually cares about you. How are you going? Ask you a few questions. It seems like a lot of that's that's gone. And it's really nice and refreshing to sit down with someone like yourself that really cares about, actually understanding and listening and talking to
The
someone.
wrong way. I can't, any act of kindness. I like when I was in prison, if someone showed me kindness, I was suspicious of them,
Yeah.
But to be able to, like, when you have that trust in someone, they just show you a bit of kindness, it's such a good feeling. I do this thing, so I try to give out 5 compliments a day, whether it's someone or just walking up the street. I was done it with this girl down in the harbour the other day, and she just stopped and I said, I just want to say, I'm not being sleazy, I just want to say you look fucking amazing. I hope you have a great day. And I walked off. And I seen her and I looked back because I felt her looking at me and looking back, and she was just staring at me. I was like, fucking, what the fuck are you? Like, one day here, and then my place here, I said to this woman, you look vibrant. She goes, I'm not pregnant. I said, no, I'm not saying that. I said, you just look alive. I said, you look so amazing. I said, I hope you have a great day. And she started crying. She goes, can I have a hug? I said, of course you can.
Yeah.
And she goes, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. I said, well, people they should be saying a lot more because you're deserving of it. And just little things like that, and walk off and leave them with it.
A really good concept. I think a lot, if you go down to Bondi and tell every second bird that she's looking beautiful.
It's not in that sense. I think there's a way to do it without being sleazy.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think you do a disclaimer, not being sleazy.
Yeah.
I just want to say that you look fucking amazing, you look fit and healthy, and off I go. And it's not necessarily the young, good-looking ones; it's the older ones.
Yeah, yeah.
That are sort of challenging themselves, And it's necessarily. This girl I'm seeing at the moment's a personal trainer, and she was training with a client yesterday, and I walked up and I was talking to her, and I said, you look fucking amazing. And that woman said, what about me? I said, fucking, that's what I'm talking. I'm not talking about her. She's a fucking old bullfed. And my girl was so stoked.
Yeah, mate, I'm going to try this. I think it's really good. I'm always looking to put some things on my board, some short-term goals to work on.
It's text. And it's just a little text. You can send someone a text and you say, man, I'm fucking thinking of you. I just hope you have a crack of the day. I think you're an amazing person. You're an asset to this world. Just wrap them up like a Christmas present and have a great day. And I'll tell you something now, when I do that, I feel so good about it. Because I'm creating a positive energy.
Yeah.
And the positive energy that's flowing through me I'm allowing it to flow. I'm sharing it with others. So I'm allowing, that's fucking great.
Yeah.
I don't know how good they feel about it, but fuck, I feel good.
Do you find this mindset you have towards life now helps you overcome obstacles, adversity? Like we're talking about the I guess the people you're working with, the lawyers, that kind of thing that you were liaising with. There was these allegations of claim farming when you were trying to get this off the ground, the voice of a survivor, where it was almost like they were saying that you were pressuring the victims to, for compensation, for kickbacks to make money. It was like you're pushing them into making up some form of story to try and get some money out of the system. So
I love this story. You know what I love about this story? Because those same people who are accusing me of it had all been coming undone. Like
Hayden.
the main person was a bloke called Warren Jones, who was in charge of an organisation called No More. They just got sued for giving people wrong legal. You know what? I tell you what, the universe fucking looks after me. Everyone that tries fucking me over gets fucking brought undone, and it's calm. And they approach, and how it come about, they approach Australian story. I love it. I sit back and love how the universe works in regards to these people. So they make up. Let me tell you something. Claim farming don't apply to me. I'm not a lawyer. I only apply to lawyers. But I've never approached anyone. I get approached. I can put up ads on social media and go, that doesn't mean anything. I just telling people what we do. I'm not ringing them individually. And that's what claiming farming is, when you ring someone and go, I know you got abused. Come and do it with us. So what I do is I put ads out, and then people come to us, right? And I've always done it that way. And I've never needed to claim farm. Like, we'll process 50 people a week. So I'm not that desperate. But what it was these fucking bunch of private school boys up in Brisbane who thought I was out of my lane, And one of them used to be a friend of mine. And the work, and I was drawing all the work away from them. All the survivors were coming through ours and not going to them. And they were seeing that so they brought in, and it's just, I fucking love it. I love this story. I love people asking me about this because I get to tell my side of the story. And my story and their story is two different things. My story is the truth, and theirs is just a fucking resentment. And So the main offender was a bloke called Warren Strange who headed some fucking parliamentary inquiry and just lied through his teeth, produced a fake document that had I had everything on of mine, my letterhead. I had my letterhead, not even my real phone numbers, not even, and it was saying we're invoicing at $19,000 a client. Later shit, not even close to it. And we never got a right to response to it. You know, it was just a kangaroo court. But Queensland after, and what happened, this inquiry was meant to improve the treatment of survivors. It made it actually fucking worse. You know, no one's, they're not getting processed. When we were around, they were getting processed. But all these little sniveling fucking things, they're all coming undone. They're all getting investigated for claim farming. And one bloke, his nickname, his last name rhymes with turd, right? And that's what I'll leave it at. And people who know, right? His last name. So he was like this little fucking pit bull fucking going after me. And it was funny because they invited me to have a meeting and he was there with his boss who used to be my mate. Oh, my ace was, so they thought I was turning up on my own, sit down to have lunch. Oh, I just thought I'd bring Mary with me. Never know when you're going to need legal advice. You know, so I brought my lawyer with me and you could see them, their eyes look at each other. This ain't meant to happen. You know what I mean? And she just tore shreds off him. And I'm just sitting there going, that's my girl. That's my girl. Never leave home without a gun or a lawyer.
And they're the people that you see on fucking Instagram with the anonymous accounts writing shit in your comments and all that. Like the no profile picture, and they've got just like numbers and whatever.
But you know what, brother? I'll tell you, I love watching that. It's like this, like these lawyers. I got really good lawyers. I work. There's a firm, and I cannot recommend them enough. Anyone looking for a good lawyer, Arnold Thomas Becker in fucking Melbourne, best. Fight with knuckle dusters on, put mouth guards on, and wear steel cap boots. That's how they fight for their clients, and that's a great description of them. I love them. And they were going after this Warren Strange and his organisation No More, which he's jumped ship because he's realised it's sinking. All the bullshit's coming out about him and his fucking 6-figure salary, 7-figure salary or whatever he's on, and government funded and all the bullshit. And and they said, Russell, we're going after him. And they said, we've got him, you know. And it was like we all celebrated. It was like, yes, you know, because it was just out of jealousy, and it was like, I'm a boy from Mount Druitt who they thought they're out their lane. They're getting used to me now because I ain't going nowhere. And I said that's a thing I said on Australian Story after. I said, they want me out of this. They want me in Long Bay Prison on a muster line, and I ain't going out. And you know what? I think 2 or 3 years ago, and I haven't gone anywhere. I'm still doing what I'm actually gone better since that, you know, because people who won't fucking, they're saying that about you. You know, they must be fucking, you know, because that's what they do. They shut down people who they try to shut them down, and good luck. Because I'm coming at you again, you know, and I'm going to tell you something. I've never disclosed this. I'm going to be a partner of my own law firm soon. In Queensland at the moment, they put all those regulations and law in that we can't work on it. Well, I'll be back up there soon. And I'm going to let them know that I'm a partner in this law firm. And I'm going to let them know that if you're doing a shit job, come to us. Don't go to them. It's all right. We'll look after you. They won't. They're shit bags. And Queensland has always been the home and the beautiful people up there in Queensland. And I don't like Ray Hadley, but I'll agree on with him with something, and I've spoken to him about it, right? Queensland's always been the home for soft sentences for pedophiles. Queensland's got a prison up there called Walston Prison, right? It's got 900 sex offenders that associate freely on a daily basis, swap war stories. If that was 900 bikies, there'd be an uproar. That's the most dangerous. You've got to separate them. They'll be talking about criminal behaviour, but they'll allow the pedophiles to do it.
They got Daniel Morgan's.
He's there. A whole heap of other fucking super grubs are there, you know, and they all associate and they all talk about it, because I'm here to tell you, bank robbers, drug dealers, everyone sits around talking about the crime, and they're no different. So they are getting better at what they do, how to perpetrate. So they're planning. There's a bunch of them right now planning how to get out and perpetrate more. And that Queensland government don't do nothing. And I've seen that fucking recent resignation of that, you know, the premier up there, and rightly so. She, you know, the sentencing up there is ridiculous. They just get slaps on the wrist. They have their own jails. They're treated with fucking preferential treatment. You can't look at a pedophile the wrong way, or the screws will jump on your head. They teach them pedophiles what they do. And here's another thing. They've got 2 police forces up there. One's called Task Force Maxima that investigates coppers. I think there's about 124 coppers on that. We've got Task Force Argos that investigates pedophiles. I think it's about 20. So the disparity and how high, like they think, you cannot tell me, I don't care what people say, bikies don't pose a bigger threat than pedophiles. Pedophiles create bikies. Pedophiles create criminals. Pedophiles create fucking violent people, drug addicts, you know, and these Queensland people, oh, no, it's, yeah, the spirit of JB Occupeterson's alive and well in Queensland, let me tell you. Fucking redneck fucking parliament.
There's a lot of investigations going on into the murder investigations, like the forensics up there as well. I don't know if you've heard about Shandy's story where they butchered like the handling of the case and that kind of thing. So there's a lot to answer for.
They fucking up there, man.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, people talk about, they ask me about my business acumen, and I say, mate, go and spend time in Queensland. If a prison officer can fuck up the most easiest task possible, they will find the hardest possible way, and they will regulate the fuck out of the most easiest thing to do to slow up the process and get 5 other people employed to. Sometimes it's just a matter of fucking, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we need an application form. We got to fucking run it by the CSU or WXYZ and the fucking triple Z, fucking, he's got to approve it. It's like, fuck off. You know, and I do, and I take a lot out of the prison officers. I learn a lot from them about how not to fuck things up, because they are the biggest fuck ups you'll ever come across. And that's true. You know, my business, man, I left school at 14. Today I've got a business and I employ a whole heap of people I work with. You know, my son come with me one day and we're in this fucking big oak boardroom barrister's fucking joint. And I'm sitting there in a Hugo Boss tracksuit, and they're in there fucking smart. And my son's whispering. He said, "Dad, do you feel out of place?" I said, "No, not at all." I said, "I'm as good as any of these on any given day." And he said, "You know, they got all these degrees." I said, "Fuck, it means nothing to me. I've got street knowledge. It's 10 times better than what they've got.
Yeah.
I've got lived experience. They've got nothing on me. It's not that I think I'm better than them, but I don't think I'm worse."
Probably shouldn't talk about this kind of thing, but I guess like the idea of the corruption within the police force that you experience, is this something that you can discuss on?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Like,
Yeah.
I guess them selling drugs and stuff, or you know.
I think there's even worse than that. I think, look at what we're seeing at the moment. Look what we're seeing, and there's this pattern, right? We're seeing, man, and they might come at me for it. I don't give a fuck. But this pattern of police excess and fucking child exploitation material regularly. How many times have you seen it? Like, I reckon I've seen it 35 times this year. So there's an indicator that there's a problem with fucking pedophiles, you know, in the police force. It's becoming a new Catholic Church, and I say this freely. I don't know, you know, man, I don't watch news, but I see, you know, the news reports on, you know, Instagram and TikTok or whatever, and it's true. Like, they're accessing. There's a lot of it. I think there was only one. I think the police chaplain yesterday. I seen one on the police chaplain accessing child exploitation media. There's a serious problem with it, and you know, and I think that's work. Like I think all of it. So they're creating a pedophile. The pedophile is creating a drug addict, you know what I mean? So, and then the drug dealer comes along and sells drugs to the victim, you know what I mean? Like, I just think, you know, the indoctrination in not only just the police force, but in corrective services. Like, you could go and get a job in corrective services and go, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to help these people learn the errors of their way, not with a baton, but with education. And, you know, and I'm coming across this copper up in, Tweed Heads. He was a fucking good bloke. Geez, he was a good bloke. And him and his wife trained in the gym. They were in love, and he was just a sound guy. Like, and you know, I remember he was involved in my arrest once, and I liked him. Hey Ron, how are you, mate? Russ, mate, you know what we got to do. He was fair. Didn't try loading me up. Didn't try bashing me. He goes, and you know, and one time he goes, I reckon you're a 50-50 chance of beating this, mate. He was just honest. He said, but which way are you going to roll? He said, are you good for it? And, you know, and I always pleaded guilty to things I was good for, and I'm not guilty to things I didn't do. Yeah. I said, mate, I'm good for it. I'll plead guilty. He goes, you're going to do a record of interview? I said, you know, I'm not going to do that. I said, I'm not going to do your job for you. But, you know, comes the time, or I'll plead guilty to it, you know, and then, you know, and then another time he goes, mate, you're gone for all money. I said, I know, you know. I like good cops. I think we really need them. I like cops with good communication skills, you know.
Yeah.
There was a real good one on the Gold Coast called Bill Lithgow, man. He was just a solid guy, you know, mate. Fuck, you do the wrong thing. I don't need to load you up when I know you when the evidence indicates you do it. You know, I'm not going to rob you because that'll make me as bad as you. I'm not going to punch you in the head because assault's a crime. So as soon as I punch you in the head, I become a criminal. I'm as bad as you. You know, this notion that we're going to bash the shit out of these kids and kick their ads in and everything, like, they know what they're doing. They're traumatizing these kids and creating future criminals. And I think that in my day, there was an awareness of that and they knew what they were doing. And I think they learned from, you know, from psychiatrists and psychologists. I think that was part of the the undercurrent of their learning. I think that you bash these people enough, they will resent you. They will start committing crimes and will be in a job. You know, I don't subscribe. I don't subscribe to do it. Like, my car got stolen, right? I didn't even report it. Why would I report it? What's the benefit of that? What's the benefit of this kid getting locked up and being traumatized and being even worse? I got my car back through Facebook, you know.
Yeah.
Put an ad on Facebook and someone told me where it was. Then the kids apologized to me. They said, mate, sorry, we didn't know whose car it was. And we've parked it and it was fucking, and they said it's full of petrol. I've been in a petrol run. And, you know, that's the other stuff they didn't disclose. Then I had to get Mary, my partner, to go down to the police station because, you know, I didn't want to be a part of them kids being traumatized through what? It's a fucking car. Who gives a fuck?
See, some people listening would be like, well, if you don't report him, you know, he's not going to learn from his
Oh.
crime.
He's not gonna learn from getting locked up in the boys' home and getting
Yeah.
fucking sexually abused either.
Yeah.
So
And so
what is the answer?
what's the difference now with the way that the police handle things back in time? Well, I guess now compared to when you were sexually abused and when you were locked up.
You've got body cams they can turn off.
Yeah, right.
They've got body cams that, oh yeah, oh, this works for us. No, that don't work for us. Turn it off.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you get lucky and you get justice. Sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
But that's it. I think I don't know if they're blatantly as corrupt as they used to be.
Yeah.
But they got the dirty tricks they've got these days are fucking, you know, like and you got that LECC, which the cops that investigate the cops, and there's nothing ever going to come out of that. Let's face that. And my case in question is the 95-year-old grandmother got murdered by the copper by way of taser down at Cooma. Like, look at that. Imagine if the media didn't get hold of that. He was fucking free as an African dictator. You know, it's true. You know, he was sweet. The media's like, like that woman's family found out through the media, not them. They weren't going to tell. They had their brooms out. They're sweeping everything under the carpet on that one. Even to the point, like, if I don't turn up at court, I get charged with failure to appear, right? His first couple of appearances, the police sergeant prosecutor excused him from going to court. It's not the police sergeant prosecutors to excuse him from going to court because of the media. It's the magistrate's job. And the magistrate blew up and said, no, you know, what the fuck? What do you think you're doing? But do you hear about that anymore? Like, that case is 12 months deep, right?
Yeah.
We don't hear about him going to court anymore. We hear nothing. It's going to get swept under the carpet. Oh, coroner will come in. The LEC will come in and go, oh, yes, well, she had a blunt and she posed a serious threat. You know, fucking mate, a fucking 2-year-old kid could have snatched that knife out of it. That was really sickening. And what I thought out of that, I thought this is going to draw a lot of attention. I did at the time, it's none now. I'm just amazed that, like, you know, look, they've got a hard job, right? They deal with some really horrible things. Imagine that. Gary Jubilant, who's a friend of mine, and I like Gary. He was an ex-homicide squad, and telling me you're not going to knock on someone's door and say your fucking 3-year-old kid's been murdered. Like, man, that's a horrible job to do. And dealing with some real serious scumbags that's just bashed some fucking woman to a pulp. You know, I get that, you know, and it's some poor bastard that's had their life savings stolen or something like that. I get that. That's tough. But when you start engaging in criminal behavior yourself by way of assaults or fucking, telling lies in court, you're a criminal. You're no different than them people. Assault's assault. You know, the problem is the rednecks and everything go, oh no, that's okay, just punch his head. But it's okay for a cop to break the law. No, the law applies to us all.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the death Say if you had someone like, I know you talk
Ivan
about
Milat, Ivan Milat.
Ivan Milat being like he's not a threat in prison because he was pretty small.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem we have is and I think America's a great, the problem you have, say for instance, you run in to do a stick up, right?
Yeah.
And you shoot someone, well, there's the death penalty, you know, the death penalty is there. There's one witness, that witness is going.
Yeah.
So does the death penalty make society safer? No, it doesn't.
Right.
Is the death penalty a deterrent? In America, the states with the death penalty have higher murder rates than ones that don't.
Right.
So I don't know if it's a deterrent. Oh man,
Yeah.
mate, give me a kid killer, and mate, I'll hit the button all day. I'll stab him to death with a spoon. You know, I will fucking smack him over the head with a fork until he dies. I'm all for that. I'm all for that. But is it a solution? I don't know. Leave it to the jury. But you know what people have got to understand is that doesn't make society safer. It actually makes it more dangerous. But for sure, man, I take great pleasure in anyone who hurts children, because I talk about pedophiles, right? And I say, I'm a heterosexual man. I'm attracted to a certain type of woman. A gay guy's attracted to a certain type of guy. A lesbian's attracted. They're attracted to children. It doesn't change. Your sexual preference that can never change. It's a psychological or psychiatrical, whatever it is. Fucking, that's how it is. You're not changing it, man. Unless they go, all right, cut off the fucking meat and potatoes, the balls, and then I don't know, and some serious medication to control their urges. Well, you know, that's the only time you live. But you got to negotiate. That's what you got to agree to. You've got these urges towards children. This is what you got to do. You know.
Yeah. It's a really interesting conversation, mate. And thanks for your time today.
I think I love this one.
Yeah, no, it's been good, and we'll maybe get you on next year or whenever you're free
Whatever
again.
you want.
Great to get you on.
Whatever you want. It's good when topics are up. Like when, you know, like I like doing that with people, bringing in someone when there's a hot topic.
Yeah. Well,
I'm all for that.
next time we'll bring someone else on with you as well. We can get come on and we'll grab
Pop,
someone
pop
else.
would be good. I love debating with. I love having
Yeah.
getting it, and I could maybe get you one or two of them. But I love getting it on from perspective. You know, I think perspective from theirs perspective. I love that. I love hearing their perspective.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with it, and they don't necessarily agree with mine.
Yeah.
Me and Gary Giblin are good mates, and we don't agree on everything, but we're still good mates. I respect his opinion; he respects mine.
Well, that's a good friendship, isn't it? You don't want a kiss-ass friend who's just going to tell you yes all the time.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love people that keep me like I'm real, but I just like sometimes if I'm out of kilter, I like someone to go, hey, fucking just jump back in your lane. I like it.
Yeah. In prison, Malcolm Baker, any other prisoners in there that you were really
I think Billy Monday was he went on record on 60 Minutes.
was he the guy with the razor knuckles that
No, Billy. Oh no, that was Alf Brown. But Billy Monday had like dots on his neck, and it said "Please cut here," like as in a cardboard box. You know what I mean? But he was an escapee, and he went on record as saying he gets more joy out of raping a woman than having sex with him. And unfortunately, a lot of blokes liked him. I didn't like him because of the fact he was a rapist, and that's just one crime. Raping, anything to hurt women or children, I just will not cop. I will not accept. It's funny because my partner, the barrister who I was with, she said bank robbers have got this real moral compass. She'd encountered a lot through the work she's done. She goes, where does it come from? I said, I don't know. I don't know. It's just fucking who we are. We got a lot of us have got the same thing. It's like we went to the same university.
Yeah, I think it comes through in your story, mate. So yeah, thanks for sharing all your trials and tribulations and all the great work you're doing now. It's been a pleasure. But before we go, I know you're heading off to the gym now. You're not in San Francisco, as some people might.
Definitely not. I'm close to there, about 700,000 k's. No, I'm not. I'm in the city, and I'm off to my favorite gym. It's like home to me. And
The city gym?
Yeah, I go to city gym a fair bit. That's so good. Blake owns it's from Mount Druitt. We vibe. He calls me the Prince of Mount Druitt. I call him the King. And I've just got a lot of friends there, and we're all just uplifting. There's a lot of gay people. There's a lot of fucking gangsters. It's just a good place. You know?
And
a
so,
melting pot, a plethora of people.
what we got this playlist, the Normless playlist, where I just put one song from each guest.
Yeah.
What do you listen to at the moment? What's your, if you had to pick one
This
banger?
girl, man, this girl is just, what is it? What am I listening to? I'm actually listening to a lot of Chris Stapleton at the moment. Traveller, I think. Chris Stapleton, he's like a countryman. Because I've got a really eclectic taste in music. I don't like fucking up, but this girl, man, I'm going, she's just got this fucking sort of like really thinking music. It's sort of dance, trance sort of stuff. It's fucking so, like we'll drive. I've got a pretty nice car. And we'll drive my car last night, and I was just fucking. I was so like fucking. We weren't talking. It was like this music was really making me think, and I was like, fuck, I'm loving this vibe. It's like because in prison I read a lot of books, and I never had a TV, and I used to listen. When I got rid of the TV, and I used to listen to music and read, and really soothing. And I can't wait until over Christmas. I'm going to catch up on a few books because yeah, I'm going to read a few books. I'm going to read that one about the bloke, the happiest man alive, the one who was scraped from Auschwitz.
Oh yeah, yep.
I'm going to read that. I'm doing a deal with the publisher that wrote that. So music, Chris Stapleton's Traveller. That'd be my answer right now.
All right, we'll add that one to the playlist. If people want to find it, they can just click the link in our Instagram.
Go.
And yeah, thanks for your time today, mate.
Good, great, mate. Great questions. Great podcast.
Thanks, buddy. I'll have a good gym session. We'll
I
speak.
will. Got to go and work on the guns.
See you, mate.
See you, mate. Have a good day.